Is OpTic the God Squad? Is Shopify Rebellion that good? Where's SSG's roster? Is FaZe leaving Halo? We will talk about all of that and more in today's video. My name is Buck. I go by My First Instinct, and I've been just watching and competing Halo for going on 2 decades, going on 2.5 decades. Man, I'm getting old at this point. It is what it is. That's not the point of the video. The point of this video is that I want to share my opinion from an outside perspective on what's going on with all these rosters in Halo. Why did all of these teams make all these changes, and will we see successes or failures from them? Now, what everyone is most interested in is this OpTic roster that is called the God Squad right now, consisting of Formal, Legend, Bound, and Renegade. 3 of the absolute most absurd players in the game and the most absurd first-person shooter of all time under Formal, all teamed up into one roster to make this God Squad. Is it really a God Squad, though? I will admit I'm not a big fan of jumping the gun on prematurely, calling people the best or the God Squad or this or that. Like, I'm not a big fan of that. As an analogy, I'm really into the NFL. I'm a big Packer fan. Some of you guys may not be interested in that, but going into this season, people were saying that our quarterback, Jordan Love, may get the MVP award. And I hated that. I hated hearing that. What happens in the first game? He gets injured and he's out for 2 weeks, and he did not have an MVP season. And I did not want people hyping that up. If I were a team going into the HCS season, I would not want to be the most anticipated team. I would not want to be the God Squad. I would not want that. I would want to be the underdog. I would want to be the team that just pops up out of nowhere and destroys. Kind of like Pure last year. Pure, obviously, some people kind of saw, they expected maybe like a top 8, whatever, but when Pure was getting those top 4, top 3s, people were really impressed by them, and that is kind of what I would want to be in that situation. I wouldn't want to be the God Squad where everyone's expecting me to be the absolute best. It's just, that's not how I would personally want to go into the season. When the season's actually started and you actually have proven yourself and people are expecting you to win a tournament, that's different. But going into a season where it's completely new and fresh, no, I don't want to be the God Squad. On paper, though, this team is pure skill. Got Legend and Bound, who are 2 of the fastest players in the game, and I think that they are quickly becoming a duo. Not only does Legend live with Bound, but also just the way that they play together and the way that they have bonded together, it seems like they are now just a duo. Those 2 are going to be together from SSG to now moving over to OpTic. I would say that it's safe to say that they're a duo. You also have Renegade, who is one of the most skilled players individually in the game, just without a doubt. When it comes to sniping, when it comes to outkilling, when it comes to just the absurd plays, he is one of the most individually skilled. And then Formal, I honestly don't have to speak on him too much. Everyone knows him as the turret. This dude just shoots and doesn't miss. He just walks and just destroys everything in his path. He is legitimately the best first-person shooter console-wise that we've seen in a very long time, and that's including like Snipe Down and other players along those lines. But Formal, just his pure dominance is just absurd, and so to have this team together on paper is just pure skill. It is incredibly impressive. Yes, they are all professionals. Yes, they are all very knowledgeable in this game, but this team feels like a run and gun team. All of them just are going to be holding W, and all of them are just going to be pushing your spawns and causing chaos. But is there really going to be much strategy? Like, yes, they're pros, but it's like, they don't really have any of these brainiacs. They don't have an eco. They don't have a snakebite. They don't have a lucid there to be this brainiac player to be making, like, to be calling the plays to that level of like brainiac, like I'm saying here. So is this just going to be like a pure chaos? We're running, shooting, we're not missing, and we're just going to kill you. Like, is that what's going to happen? Now, of course, not taking away their knowledge of the game. They're all pros. They are all way smarter at the game than me or you, if we're being honest here, right? But it's going to be a very interesting play. Is this going to be a new meta? Like, is this, Halo 5 was very similar, or I shouldn't say really similar, but it was more very like individually gun skill based. So is it going to be a very like, we're just better than you and you're going to have to deal with it type of team? Like, who knows? Is this going to be meta changing? These are the answers that I want to know. I personally don't think that it's going to change the meta. I think that those structural teams are still going to do well. And a great example of that is Ryan Noob's team with Triggers Down in the recent open tournaments that have been going on. Ryan Noob being one of the most brainiac players we've seen, or the most, kind of structural players we've ever seen, is performing very well with some kind of lesser, quote unquote, like lesser pros. And so I don't think that they're really going to just change meta with this, but it's going to be very interesting to say the least. My question really is, though, is when are they going to break up? I know what you're thinking. They just formed. What do you mean? When are they going to break up? Well, if you've been paying attention to the podcasts or anything talks about kind of Formal and how he feels about Halo, he has said on the OpTic podcast to the public that he was going to retire unless he got this roster right here. That says a ton to me about his motivation and his willingness to continue to compete in Halo. In my opinion, it's a little childish to be like, I'm going to retire unless I get this roster, so Hex, figure it out. Now, I wasn't behind the doors. I don't know if that's how that went, but that's, from what it sounds like he was like, I'm going to retire unless we get these people, so figure it out. Like, that's just what it seems like. I don't think that's very professional, but hey, it happened. So in my opinion, that shows lack of motivation for him to want to really play the game. And another thing that really backs up that conclusion is today is January 29th, and just the last couple of days, I want to say he started on January 27th, did he start playing Halo again. He's just been playing Marvel Rivals, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't be enjoying himself, shouldn't be playing other games, but if you are borderline going to retire and all you're doing is playing other games, like your interest is elsewhere. Great example of that was Ninja. Ninja was really into H1Z1 when Halo 5 came out. He was still competing on Halo 5, but he was also competing in H1Z1. He was seeing major success in H1Z1. He was having a lot more fun with the game, and he just left Halo. Like, is that what's going to happen with Formal? Is he going to just become a content creator and get rid of Halo and just go straight into Marvel Rivals or whatever he wants to play and just go be good at video games? Like, he has that option. And so if you're teetering on retirement, let's say you go into the season and you lose 2 events back to back and like lose them, let's say badly, or even get second place back to back, and you've just got an entire season of second places. Are you going to want to continue playing the game that you barely want to play anyways? Like, I'm really worried about Formal and what he's willing to do with this roster. I think the other 3 are super pumped to be on this roster, and I know Formal's pumped, but it's like I know that those other 3 are like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime, and we're going to make this work. Another thing that's throwing me off about Formal is his kind of relationship with his team. In the same podcast where he talks about him retiring, he is asking Legend, who's a French player, like how he spent his holidays or like where he's going to be in the next couple of months, because he's like, wait, were you in America or were you in France? Or are you going to be in France? Or like, what's going on? Like, he doesn't even know where his teammate's going to be. And you may be listening to me or watching me and being like, why does that matter? They're playing video games. Like, why does it matter if he knows? A lot of what makes a team work in these competitive situations, or even in just life, or just something that's so important when it comes to being a partner with anybody, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a teammate, whether it's a colleague or whatever, is chemistry. And this, like, Formal saying that just proves like he barely even knows Legend. He barely even knows what's going on with his life. He doesn't even know if he's going to be in the United States at the moment. And you're going to go into the season with that little of chemistry. And then there's been all of these open tournaments leading up to the HCS season, and Formal's not playing in them. You got Legend Bound and Renegade playing together, and then they'll either pick up Tusk, who's their coach, which I think is a great decision to play with your coach to get, more bonding time with that. Or they're playing with Falcated, who's playing out of his mind, to tell you the truth. Good job, Falcated. We'll touch on him later. But you've got these 3 grinding it out, and Formal's sitting there playing Marvel Rivals at the same time that they're playing Halo, not bonding, not building that chemistry, which is so important, and it takes time to build that. And so, yeah, it may seem weird for me to be nitpicking that Formal doesn't care where his French teammate is, but at the end of the day, it does matter to be building this chemistry, to be a teammate, to be a solid teammate, to be a good friend to your team. It goes a long way, especially at the level that they're playing at. Because of that, I think that they are getting out-practiced by some of these other teams like Shopify Rebellion, who we will touch on in just a moment. And if you're getting out-practiced, and if you're not really building those fundamental levels right now, going into the season, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And so I'm really worried for this roster, to tell you the truth. I don't want to be. I want to see success from them, because I do like actually pretty much all the players on the team. But I just want to see more from it. I don't want to see this kind of half-assed experience. I want to see them really putting in effort, kind of like the way that Legend, Bound, and Renegade are. I want to see Formal putting in this effort the way that they are. And sure, the roadmap hasn't even been announced yet, which by the time that this video is uploaded, the roadmap might have been announced, but they need to build together now rather than wait till a month before the tournament and then get screwed over. So we'll see. We'll see how good this God Squad is, and we'll see if they even stay together by the time Worlds comes around. Now the team that's doing the opposite of all of that, Shopify Rebellion, who is the top gun at the moment in time, right? Now, once again, these tournaments I'm talking about, these open tournaments are off-season tournaments, so like OpTic's not even playing their full roster. SSG, who hasn't even announced their roster at this time, isn't playing in it, and then there's just a bunch of other hodgepodge teams. So sure, Shopify is going in with their full roster and they're winning the whole thing. That's kind of be expected, but it still is showing promising results, especially when you're playing against teams like Bound Renegade, Legend, and Falcated, who is a very solid team. Whether you got formal or not, that's a very solid team, right? So going into that, Shopify is still beating them. So Shopify is a very impressive team at the moment, but how far is this success going to last? Like I said, they are the most practiced team, and if you've listened to other podcasts from the Tide the Leader podcast, Royal 2 talks about how he's never even played with Cycle. So I may sound hypocritical right now. What do you mean? He's never played with Cycle, but Formal can not know where Legend is, and that's okay? No. But the point is that they're playing together right now. They're building that chemistry right now. They are getting the practice in right now. So that way, Royal 2 and Cycle are going to know exactly how each other play by the time that the season starts. They are putting in the work right now to get ready for the season and to build that chemistry and do exactly what I was saying that the OpTic team needs to be doing. And so I really do think that Shopify is doing the right steps for success. And that may be because of Bestman, their coach, right? He's very experienced. He's been playing the game for decades now. He can really put in a lot of solid input. Maybe that's what's going on, but they're playing the right steps at the moment. I do think that they also have some of the most motivation going into this, with having two young guns of Cycle and Last Shot being back-to-back Rookie of the Years, essentially. Like, these guys are so motivated to do well, and they're so young that they're not kind of beat up by the BS that HCS and 343 have put them through, right? They're ready to prove themselves, and they're ready to get a chip on their shoulders. They're ready to just destroy, and they have been. If you don't know, Eli the Ninja, one of the most educational, I shouldn't say educated, but like one of the smartest people in HCS, in LVT, in all that stuff. Like, he's very smart. He's been playing the game since it came out. You know, that guy is he's been competing and he's super good. He compares Last Shot and Cycle to Snipe Down and Pistola, who are some of the best Halo players of all time, and you're getting compared to that. That says a lot. But with Cycle's KD ratio, which stats are stats, they don't tell the full story, but with Cycle's KD ratio and with Last Shot's damage output, they are comparable to Snipe Down and Pistola, who are just, I don't even need to speak on that, right? To say that they are compared to those guys speaks for itself, right? So you got these two young guns paired with Frosty and Royal 2, who are veterans at this point, who have won so many so many tournaments, including world championships together. Royal 2 and Frosty, I would say, are some of the iciest players we've seen, especially Frosty. What he pulls off in the strangest moments is crazy. Royal 2 is one of the most accurate shots we've ever seen. Like, we're going to have a very solid individual team. They may not be as flashy as like Bound and Legend seem to be and Renegade seems to be, but they are very, very impressive team skill-wise. I'm going to go back a sentence on saying that they may not be as fast as Bound and Legend, but actually, I think they can be. Royal 2 also talked about in that podcast about how he enjoys to be fast. He enjoys to push, and that's something that doesn't sound like him because he's technically an anchor, but here he is wanting to push. So I really do think that we're going to see a completely different side of Frosty and Royal 2 here being paired with them. I also know that Frosty 2 has been considered the IGL of that FaZe roster, apparently. Not so much Snakebite, but more so Frosty, and he's very smart. His predictability is insane. He's shaping up to be a very well-rounded player, not just that high-skilled player that we saw in Halo 5. He is a very smart player. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he does with this team. But he has also mentioned that when Renegade got added to the FaZe roster, or I should say when the Sentinels team merged to the FaZe roster with Renegade, that Frosty had to adapt and change his playstyle, and it just kind of didn't really work. And so I know that he's looking forward to kind of stepping away from that. I don't know if it was a PJ thing. I don't know if it was a Renegade thing. I hope it wasn't a Royal 2 thing, because why would you team with Royal 2 again if that was the problem? But anyways, I'm really curious to see what this team is going to shape out to be. I really do think that they're the top team at the moment, but once again, how is OpTic going to perform as soon as Formal and the whole team starts playing again? And then also, where's SSG and that whole roster? So who's to say that they're the absolute best, but they are performing the best at the moment. And I think that they have the most potential at this moment. So SSG, where are they? Where's the roster? We got a invigorating video posted by Spacestation Gaming on Twitter. If you have not checked it out, full link down in the description below. But where's this roster? This roster that everyone is assuming they know what it is. But I think it's safe to say that it is this roster. There are a lot of free agents, which we're going to touch on later. But that roster being Stellar and Eco, who we pretty much already knew, and then Lucid and Snakebite, who are kind of the stragglers from these other rosters that we've seen, such as FaZe dropping, or like FaZe departing with Royal 2 and Frosty, and then Renegade. So that just leaves Snakebite completely by himself. And then for the OpTic roster, Trippy went his own way with Penguin. Formal obviously dropped the whole roster, and then Lucid was just by himself. So SSG is most likely going to be that 4 of Eco, Stellar, Snakebite, and Lucid. Now that roster can be very deadly. Lucid is a incredibly individually skilled player. Stellar is hands down the best sniper in the game and very individually skilled. And I personally think that Snakebite played phenomenal at the end of last year. I think he was playing some of the best Halo we've ever seen. I think that Snakebite is still an incredibly top player, even though his teammates kind of left and went in, they already announced their rosters and, they got the better end of the stick. But I think that Snakebite kind of deserved better. Snakebite is incredibly impressive at the game. So that roster could make a lot of moves, and I'm very curious to see what they do. But this roster is pretty much the opposite of the OpTic Gaming roster, as in they are the brainiest roster in the league. I just having Eco, who I consider Eco to be one of the smartest players. I think Ryan Noob is the smartest, but then I think it's Eco, just how smart he is at the game. And same thing with Lucid, incredibly smart at the game. And then you also have Snakebite, who was the IGL for that Sentinels roster, Sentinels/FaZe roster, for a very long time. So what is going to happen when you've got 3 of the brainiest players in the entire game playing on the same roster, and each one of them was pretty much the captain of their team? I think Eco is the captain of the SSG roster. Formal and Lucid kind of were both captains, from my understanding, of that OpTic roster at the time, and then Snakebite was the captain of that FaZe Sentinels roster. So it's like you got 3 of these alpha captains all in the same spot. What is going to happen? Is there going to be a lot of headbutting here? Is there going to be just a lot of swallowing of your pride and just be like, I'm here to play Halo and win? What is going to happen with that roster? I'm very curious to see that. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We're not going to know until they even announce the roster at this rate, if we're being honest. Now, I mentioned earlier about the roadmap being dropped. Roadmap is being dropped on Friday, January 31st. That being said, I think that SSG, they've already been hinting at it a ton. I think that when that roadmap drops, they're going to drop their roster as well, which makes total sense. That is just a logical thing to do, to go ahead and just, drop them both at the same time. So hopefully we'll see something like that soon. And then hopefully that makes waves in some other things, such as, where are FaZe and Sentinels? I've been saying their names throughout this entire, video, but where are they? Is FaZe even going to stay in Halo? Is Sentinels going to sign a roster anytime soon, especially with the solid rosters that there are? What's going to happen? Now, it may sound crazy for me to suggest that FaZe would be leading Halo, considering that they won the World Championship, 2 years ago, and then also they had a overall good season. Why would they leave Halo? Well, if you haven't been paying attention to FaZe Clan as an organization, they've been going over a bunch of rebranding. Seems like I haven't gone too much into the nitty gritty of things, but they've been going through a whole rebrand of getting rid of some members and bringing in new members, and FaZe Banks is a big part of it, and a bunch of financial changes and all this stuff. FaZe is all over the place. And for them, it seems like they're trying to make the best decision for the company, which it's a business. That's what you should be doing. And is Halo that best decision? Is Halo is Halo a good place to put your resources in at this moment? From a business perspective, I would say no. Sure, we're still getting these $1 million, world championships tournaments, but Halo is struggling, and we all know it, and we hate to say it, but Halo is struggling. So, Should FaZe stay in? Should FaZe bail out? Who knows what's going to happen? But there are some rosters that FaZe and Sentinels could pick up. I previously mentioned that Trippy and Penguin are teaming together. Penguin, previously known as Penguin, and Dead Zone. But I think that we'll quickly forget about Dead Zone and it'll just be Penguin. I personally didn't like his name change, so I'm happy that he's back to Penguin. But I also thought it was very unnecessary to go from Penguin to Dead Zone back to Penguin. That's my personal opinion. It is what it is. That's not what we're talking about in this video. We're talking about rosters. So we've got Trippy Penguin, Suppressed, and Falcated. Very interesting roster, but Falcated is a phenomenal player. Suppressed is a phenomenal player, and Trippy and Lucid have already proven to be phenomenal players. So I think that there's a lot of potential with that roster, but they are not signed to an org. So that would be, in my opinion, one of the first pickups for Sentinels or FaZe. And then as of recently, we've seen essentially the pure roster of Talik, Cherished, and we've got Manny has been playing with Boo Boo Doo. They didn't have the most success, but also, to be fair, I think it was their first tournament together and they can always work around that. But that four was playing together. I think that could be a solid pickup considering they all have a lot of experience and they all have placed pretty well. That could be an interesting pickup for maybe Sentinels. I don't think FaZe would pick up that roster, but who knows at this point, right? Now, another team I think is going under the radar. I mentioned them earlier as well, but it's Triggers Down, which I'm not a big fan of them calling themselves that, but the Ryan Noob team, which consists of Descendant, Ezo, I believe that's how you say it, Ezo, Easy, how do you say, EZHO. I don't know how you fully pronounce that. I know it's talked about a ton on LVT. I remember scrimming him earlier in the HCSs, and I always called him Ezo. But anyways, I think it's Ezo and King Nick. That four, they were performing really well in these open tournaments, and I think that's a very interesting combo. And I think that King Nick and Ryan Noob, with their experience, to be able to give it on to Ezo and Descendant, who's already becoming his own veteran player and very individually skilled. I think that that could be a really fun pickup as well. All right, and then I've got three other teams I want to just throw out there into this mix. Two of them I would say are less likely, and when I say less likely, I mean less likely to be signed by an org like FaZe or Sentinels. And then there's a team I would love to see signed based off of the experience that they just had. But to start off with, you got the Super CC, Avicii, Breaking Shot, and Common. Breaking Shot, I think, got the short end of the stick when it came to getting dropped from Complexity, which we're not really going to talk about much on this stream or on this video. But yeah, Super CC, Avicii, Breaking Shot, and Common. They've been performing pretty well. Super CC is another one of those players, though, that's kind of teetering on retirement, teetering on bailing out type of situation, it seems. So that may not end up happening. I think that that's a less likely team to get signed. And then the other less likely is going to be Envor, Complexion, Yaxon, and Piggy, who once again played well in these opens, but I don't see them getting signed by it, but they could. Who knows at this rate? I don't know, but that would be an interesting team to get an org like FaZe or Sentinels to sign them. Now, the team that I would love to get signed to FaZe and Sentinels purely because of how they got shafted recently is ITB, Into the Breach, also known as the Utum Glory Snipe Drone and SLG roster over in Europe. I think that if FaZe and Sentinels, hopped over the ocean and went overseas to pick up an EU roster, why not? Especially with an EU roster with as much fun as they are. I really like Wonderboy and what he does with his rosters. They're so fun to see. Or is it Wonderboy? I might have no, yeah, it's Wonderboy. Anyways, they're a lot of fun. Wootum, I think, is going to make a lot of changes in competitive Halo, especially with his skill with the mouse and keyboard. And then the other guys as well are just phenomenally skilled. And they won their EU LAN that just happened without dropping a game. And then if you don't know, ITB, basically, the CEO was embezzling a bunch of money and they all got screwed and they are owed a lot of money and they may not ever see it. And that's just super sad. So to see a company like FaZe pick them up and guarantee them money and actually guarantee it, it would be a really kind of like wholesome experience for them. Now, I know it still is the off season, and with the roadmap not even being announced yet, which is coming, we've already talked about it, but with the roadmap being not announced and it's still off season, there's a bunch of free agents that kind of are like, it's kind of scary in my opinion that they're free agents, and that's considering just who they are, how far they've come. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. I hope that something appears, but you've got Lethal, who, like, one of the best players in Halo history, one of the winningest players in Halo history. being a free agent. Sure, his Halo Infinite track record hasn't stayed the same as like his Halo 5 or MCC records, but still, you got Lethal, you got Soul Snipe, you got Druck, two phenomenal teammates and two teammates that have played a ton together to hopefully see them maybe team up together again. You got Sab and Septify, who have also played a ton together. And then you've got Suspector and Rain, who Suspector, I think, is still a top player, very very individually skilled, and he is. I can't remember. Actually, I here goes my Halo knowledge, but it's like I can't remember if he won an event, but I know that he made it to the finals in an event in or grand finals in an event in Halo 5. I believe with that nated roster is like nated. Ooh, man, I'm like trying to call this back. It was nated Suspector. Don't help me, chat. Don't help me, chat. Even though this isn't live. Kratos, and then I'm blanking. I have his face. He works for 343 now. I'm just gonna put the name up here. You guys know who I'm talking about. Those four, I believe, made it to a grand finals. I think Suspector is still a top individually skilled player. And then Rain, who has proven himself to be a phenomenal player, but also has like retired, came back, may not even come back this season. Who knows at this rate? But those are some free agents we got to be on the lookout for. But those are my opinions for this off season that we've had going into the roadmap announcement that's about to happen and what's going to happen in this next kind of HCS season 4, year 4. I'm really curious. I'm really hopeful. I think that this is going to be our most competitive season yet. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know your guys' opinions. Let me know if you guys agreed with me, disagreed with me. I don't care. I want to hear your guys' opinions. So comment them down below. Subscribe to see future content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.